I think, yes, you have to make a move. And I think it's just based on the precursor of what True Living did in the summertime, taking Samsonov to arbitration, knowing that they had some question marks on him being the true number one. If they thought that was the case, yeah, you know what? We'll give you your 3-4 years at $3.5 to $4.5 million. But they had some question marks. So we're talking about how serious are they about taking this next step and going on a run. I think you have to make a goaltender move. And you're talking about, well, Vegas, they didn't really have a true number one, Aiden Hill, Thompson, blah, 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 blah. But they have 6 stalwart defensemen where they protect their goaltenders. Colorado, they're on offense 73% of the game. They don't need a superstar in between the pipes. I think this team needs a true number one that can at least do the job or has been on a run before to know the ups and downs of letting in, a stinker and recovering, not, oh man, I'm having a bad game. Now I'm going to be even worse in the media. Now the camera's going to be panning on me in between, the hallways. So there's all this stuff that can spell a recipe for disaster for a Maple Leafs goaltender. They need to go and get a veteran guy that can handle it. So you mentioned a Gibson. They struck gold with Freddie Anderson, who I said was a top 5 goalie for what he was able to do in Toronto, come in here, not have any headlines with regards to the media. He just came in, did his job, and left quietly. You need a guy like that. So I'm taking a flyer out on Gibson or maybe a Fleury or somebody else. But the key is you go down and look at the pipeline. Who do you got? Who are your draft picks? Do you have the draft picks? I remember them getting rid of a bunch. What are you going to do? Are you going to trade a Nick Robertson? Are you going to trade a Fraser Minton? Are you going to trade a Cowan? Are you going to trade one of these young guys when, like we talked about before, Robertson and Nyes, you hadn't had a 6 second rounder be on your roster. So you got to start bringing in some younger guys, especially on the up front, when you could potentially be losing one of your big guns. So yes, it's easy to say on paper, yes, they need a goalie that can come in at a $5 million cap hit and be a star. But how are you going to get him? Who are you going to trade? What are you going to do? Where I think you even have to upgrade, the defense as well. So you need another defenseman. You need a goaltender. What are you going to give up to get him?
Well, to me, it's not as much of a glaring issue for a couple things. Number one, obviously, is the salary cap. I just don't think they can go out there and get like a John Gibson with term on his contract. Like I think maybe at the very least, or at the very most, you find a stopgap type guy like a Dan Vidar, who obviously Brad Treliving knows really, really well. But I think they're living in a parallel universe if they think they can go out there and acquire some stud netminder. Number one, I don't think they're out there. And number two, I just don't think they could pay the piper financially, cap-wise. Like, you'd have to dismantle like everything you have in this team. Granted, it's not working that great, but this would involve like major restructure of the salary cap and where the money's allotted, first and foremost. But
anyone else go on IR? Can anyone else go on IR? I'll go on IR if you want.
I could be your boy Revo. LTIR for like, I don't know. It just,
but that's the thing though. I think whoever it is, it has to be a 100% upgrade of Samsonov, right? I think for Samsonov, he just needs to find his game. That's going to be the number one key. Him now coming back, taking a little bit of a rest and resetting his mind. But Dan Vladar, wasn't he already here?
No, that was a Big Save Dave.
Big Save Dave, right?
No save.
So if you have a nickname, we're not bringing any guys with any nicknames in here because we saw how that worked. But I think, joking aside, it's got to be 100% of an upgrade. And to do that, it's going to cost you cap space. It's going to cost you some young capital as well that I think they do not have unless they're ready to make a big move,
well, that's exactly it.
I
don't see an upgrade out there. On top of that, I mean, the only way you can bring in anybody, you'd have to find somebody a taker for Samsonov. Like, I think at the end of the day, a perfect world to be Samsonov refinding his footing. Like, the guys look like an ECHL goalie. Get your confidence back.
That's the number one thing. And that's where, again, there's many departments and layers in the coaching staff and departments of this MLSE group. So I think that is the number one direction that you want to go, and I think you need that. But they knew him coming in, that was the book on him. So again, they have to find a way to manage that for sure. So I don't know how they do it, but again, Christmas break, Christmas holiday, maybe has some family over, comes in, watches a bunch of film, has a little bit of wine over the holidays. He comes back, R&R, ready to go. So that's the number one option. We'll see how it goes.
I just don't know if there's a flip there. And Eureka, you have Ilya Samsonov from last year back. The guy's confidence is completely shot. I think that's what they're most hopeful for. I do think the Leafs are a team that can do it with like a Martin Jones for an extended period of time because they have those big boys can outscore their problems. And I think the bigger thing to address would be the blue line, right? Especially when you look at a team like Vegas wins the Stanley Cup with Aiden Hill. Like that leads me down a warp path, maybe where it's like, I can't spend $6-7 million on a goaltender. I think the Leafs are like a prime example of a team that if everything clicks, they get the upgrades on the blue line, they can easily win with, whoever in between the pipes. And I think on top of that, you are thinking and hoping that Joseph Woll is going to be back at some point over the next couple months, we'll say, where it's like, I understand what you're saying. I mean, the sample size is pretty small on Joseph Woll, but I just don't think they have the resources to go out there. And I don't think there's a guy out there for them that makes sense right now, at least in season, to acquire. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosa. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.